Sensor Tower is one of the leading data providers, and I'll let them explain their own thing. We use their data sets for analyzing app downloads and other types of information. They're one of the best. We wanted to understand different macro trends and different areas and categories that are exciting and or just trending either up or down. So we have Dennis from Sensor Tower. He's joining us now. So let's welcome Dennis. How you doing, Dennis?
Hey, doing well. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the information and just in general. So just tell us a little bit about Sensor Tower. What do you guys do, and anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so just a quick overview of Sensor Tower. We basically give a bird's eye view of everything about the mobile app ecosystem. So that'll include things from mobile app download estimates to revenue estimates to even usage estimates and engagement. So to that end, any app that's basically on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, we can generate a lot of data and insights on everything there, whether that be from a categorical standpoint or just even looking at a specific app or a company. We have data available for everything there.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, no, it's we use you for that. So appreciate that. Now let's step back and just talk about broad highlights and macro trends that you're seeing in app downloads or revenue that you want to share.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I want to highlight is with 2021, it is lapping a very strong 2020 because of the pandemic-driven adoption of a lot of mobile apps. We saw 2020 have a pretty strong growth in terms of overall downloads worldwide. Now, digging a little bit deeper into that is kind of looking at the differences between the Apple App Store versus Google Play and what that really means. So, with Google Play, we saw around almost a 30% year-on-year growth in worldwide downloads in 2020, and then we saw that continue, but to a lesser extent, around 3% coming into 2021. So now this contracts what we see with the Apple App Store, where we saw around 12% year-on-year growth in 2020, and actually a 5% pullback in 2021. So what that really means is the increasing importance of a lot of these developing markets. So markets such as India, LATAM with Brazil and Mexico, and then just in general Southeast Asia like Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam, where we're seeing a lot of growth. Now, from our end, we see a couple reasons for this growth, and a lot of it is just increasing competition among these really large quote unquote super apps that have seen some consolidation in that area, and really aggressive user acquisition campaigns that are trying to basically carve up that market. In addition, with looking at India in particular, which is far and away the largest Google Play market, is the ban of Chinese apps in 2020. So apps like TikTok also taking that out kind of gave a power vacuum where there's a lot of domestic players trying to take up all those users that were basically vacated once certain apps were banned. So I think that's something that we're seeing on the macro side, especially in these developing markets.
Got it. So let's hone in on a couple different categories, if you will, and wherever you want to start. So everything from kind of ed tech. We had Duolingo CFO on earlier. Social platforms. Obviously, we had one of the app developers within the Oculus ecosystem. There's TikTok out there, obviously. Well, health and wellness, if possible. We talked to another company that measures foot traffic, Placer AI. And they were talking about Planet Fitness in the physical world. You guys have the information in the digital sense. And then gaming in general. And that kind of goes back to Oculus. Ironically, yesterday there was obviously the big announcement with Activision, which is interesting timing in terms of talking gaming and such. But anyways, my point is any of those topics that you feel you want to pinpoint wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I can definitely hit on all of those topics. I think I'll just start from the top. Just looking at ed tech in general. So education apps and this space, similar to what I was saying earlier, is lapping a very strong 2020. But what the interesting trends that we're seeing is that a lot of the growth is being held on to in 2021. And again, similar to what I was saying earlier with a lot of these macro trends, a lot of it is driven by these large developing markets such as India and Indonesia. So with edtech in particular, there is some questions on whether it's a shifting paradigm towards a lot of these virtual environments or whether it's still temporary. Now, if you had probably spoken to me maybe 2 or 3 months ago before Omicron, I would probably say that maybe it is a little bit of a growing shift. But because of now, there's another new wave. We'll probably need a couple more months to see whether these download gains in the education category will be held on to. So that's, I think, my general take on edtech. And now honing a little bit in on Duolingo. So some interesting trends that I've seen with Duolingo is, not to bring up India again, but they are
Mhm.
a very large market. Their download performance in developing markets, since the beginning of 2020, and something that we've seen is the potential impact of Duolingo's English certification tests. Now, while this isn't directly related to the mobile app and mobile apps, uh, Duolingo's mobile app in general, we see a lot of acceleration within developing markets such as India, especially given the pandemic and given the difficulties of test environments. We're seeing some positive impact in user acquisition and retention in a lot of these new markets. Um, and then in addition to that, Duolingo as more of a digital native service compared to some legacy language learning providers, like for example Babbel or Rosetta Stone. You do see a lot of acceleration over the past even 2 3 years, where Babbel was perhaps an incumbent and was generating a higher level of revenue, but Duolingo has really been able to blow them out of the water with a lot of their recent initiatives, and just having in general a very good subscriber retention.
Yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, we did see something in the data around year end, which again, fitness and some other categories are very similar in terms of year end and kind of goals for the next year. Some of it is travel and trying to learn a language, where we saw record, I guess, revenue and downloads for that short period of time. I guess going to the next one, and we'll maybe do in reverse because I already talked about health and wellness. Is health and wellness? What are you guys seeing in that category as a whole? And then we'll go back to social platforms.
Yeah, so health and wellness, with in early 2020, obviously health and wellness, the most important period is probably going to be January of the new year, as people either perform or don't perform on their New Year's resolutions. But with 2020, given the impact of the early pandemic period, we saw a kind of a double spike in downloads and revenue and just general interest in health and fitness apps in 2020. And because of this kind of led to a more muted early 2021, in terms of new downloads. However, if you look at it from a revenue standpoint, we still saw a kind of requisite spike in 2021, that has kind of held steady coming into this new year. But now that we're almost through January, our data is showing that downloads for health and wellness in 2022 have kind of returned to the typical year-on-year growth that we see in the space. Now, particularly interesting is a pretty outsized increase, or an outsized spike in revenue for this new year. Now, again, it is still a little bit early, and we do need to see maybe give it 1 or 2 months to see how retention is for these apps. But revenue does seem to be really increasing, and kind of similar to just general interest in the health and wellness space. But again, these are subscriber apps, so we'll probably need to return to this topic in maybe March or April to really understand the impact and see whether these gains are going to be held on to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think one thing that we've been thinking about as well is like obviously some of the more physical locations are requiring for their own benefit, right? Is the app download to then check into your health club, and ultimately what that does futuristically is here's a communication channel that they didn't have in the past. For the most part, it was more like a nice to have the app to check in. Now it's kind of a requirement because of COVID. So you're seeing again companies like Planet Fitness and some of the other ones that are in the physical space really embrace uh, that communication channel and really trying to futuristically look at that as a way of communicating off, create offers, add guests to join you as well. Next up is social platforms. TikTok is all the rage, obviously, over the last, I'd say now 2 years, possibly. And then you have again companies like Facebook and Instagram and some of the things below it, WhatsApp and whether that's social or just communication. What are you seeing in the social space?
Yeah, so I think I'll probably just use Facebook or Meta's suite of apps to kind of just frame the conversation. With WhatsApp, we're seeing a definite pullback in terms of new downloads. A lot of that is because of security issues and just privacy concerns over the last 2 years. Now, what we're seeing replace that is basically the almost meteoric growth of other more privacy concerned communication messaging apps such as Telegram. So I think that's the main story on the WhatsApp side is just a basic pullback, basically since the beginning of 2020 that has really continued and almost sharpened in 2021. It almost in conjunction with the rise of these other apps. Now with Facebook's main app, it's kind of the same old story where they still that they basically have an almost just clear momentum as one of the biggest apps in the world, where basically month to month or quarter to quarter trends are going to be relatively stable for that app. However, looking at Instagram, we have seen a lot of growth, especially in international markets where mobile adoption has kind of been increasing. Um, Now, with Instagram in particular, last summer they had, or in summer of 2020, they had mentioned kind of a shift to focus on video and short form video. And while they didn't mention this directly, I don't believe, uh, from an outside perspective, this is really to compete with and look at TikTok. Now, looking at our data in particular for TikTok and Instagram, we're still seeing TikTok having much stronger time spent gains than Instagram. So, for example, in our data set, when we look at just Facebook users or Facebook users that use TikTok or Facebook users that use Instagram, we're seeing TikTok having gains of 20 to 30% in time spent since the beginning of 2021. Now, another pretty interesting point is I took a look at TikTok users and how TikTok users use Instagram or how they use Snapchat, and we actually see that TikTok users that use both TikTok and Instagram actually use Instagram at a lower rate than the average Instagram user, and we see the opposite phenomenon with Snapchat. So from our data, we kind of maybe see that Snapchat has some sort of complementary usage, while Instagram is still struggling to be a quote unquote replacement for TikTok, even with the addition of a lot of new video based features.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like that whole category is kind of this tug of war. I think what was it, Q4 or Q3? Instagram had more downloads than TikTok for the first time in like 5, 7 years. But engagement again is the other flip of the coin of that. Now turning to gaming or whether you we can Oculus and some of the other topics. I know we were going to talk about Zynga. I don't even know which one we want to talk about now, but gaming as a category, what are you seeing there in terms of more macro trends?
Yeah, so from a more macro, taking like a step back point of view, there's just a lot of industry consolidation, especially over these last 2 weeks,
Sure.
and I think a big reason for that consolidation is, especially in the mobile world, is IDFA changes that were pushed through last year. So these changes basically made basically change the landscape for mobile gaming, and kind of encourage a lot of vertical integration rather than kind of just snapping up more titles and more IP. So in this case, with looking at Take Two and Zynga, I think a very important acquisition that Zynga had made in recent years was Chartboost, which is actually an ad network. So this basically brings a lot of advertising and ad tech in house for Zynga that is now going to be part of Take Two, and then with Take Two basically just having an expanded mobile portfolio is really beneficial to is just going to be beneficial to them, especially as Zynga looks to kind of expand out of just mobile with one of their new upcoming titles, Star Wars Hunters. So with Take Two and Zynga in particular, there's just going to be a lot of synergies, whether it comes to on the advertising side or the hyper casual side, as well as on console PC, and adding a lot of Take Two's signature IP like Grand Theft Auto, and bringing that to a mobile world. So I think that's our general take on Zynga. Um, I think in gaming in particular, there's still going to be a lot of impact that we're seeing with how IDFA affects hyper casual, and we're seeing that in a sense with how download trends, especially particularly in the U.S. where it's a pretty competitive market, we're seeing downloads of that. Category, which has traditionally been the highest downloaded subgenre in gaming, kind of have a pullback all throughout 2021. So yeah, I think those are some of our some more macro takes. And then I know you had mentioned Oculus. So Oculus itself actually. Within our data, their companion app, so the Oculus app, had record downloads in this past Christmas, almost I think past doubling their previous record in December of 2020. So I think with that, and a lot of the speak of stuff like the metaverse, being able to kind of link up mobile with VR AR, as well as a lot of these metaverse focused games like potentially Roblox, has been a definite trend that we've seen, especially in the latter half of 2021 going into 2022.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Oculus, another Meta Facebook company. Interesting to see that. And again, I think the Golf Plus VR founder expressed the same thing, where he saw 5 to 6x type of downloads and for his game inside of the Oculus store. So definitely echoes that. Do you have an Oculus by chance?
I do not. I actually have a different VR headset, but I was looking at grabbing another one, but not yet.
Got it. Yeah, no, they're cool. I just got one, so it's definitely a interesting device to say the least, and you can see where kind of this can go down the road. Yeah, look, that was a lot of topics. I think obviously thanks for coming on here and sharing some of those. For the purpose of Sensor Tower, how can people find more information about you guys and contact information if they did want to reach out? I know you guys do a lot, so whether it's yourself or just the website.
Yeah, so our website app.sensortower.com is where you can find us, as well as I can be reached at my email for any questions on anything in the mobile app ecosystem, whether that be from like any of the topics we had described today to even just general discussions or macro discussions about the app ecosystem. So my email is my name at sensortower.com. So DENNISYEH at sensortower.com is where you can find me.
Got it. Dennis, well, I appreciate it for coming on and sharing some of the details around the whole app ecosystem. Again, we'll be in touch and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.